Hello there, people and listeners of the Hungry Podcast. Today I'm absolutely thrilled to welcome Oisín Rogers onto the podcast. Osh is the co-founder of the Devonshire, which is, in my opinion, London's absolutely most amazing pub. I was here on Friday having multiple Guinnesses, having a very lovely time. Osh has been a landlord for several kind of 20 years or so in London, working at the Stag's Head in Dublin first, the Ship in Wandsworth, the Guinny Grill, and now the Devonshire. And thank you so much for finding the time in your crazy schedule to do this. I'm incredibly grateful.
It's really nice to see you, Dan. Thanks for coming to see me. Monday morning, I love it in the pub. There's nobody here. It's kind of lovely and empty and sort of ready for the day. You're really welcome. It's a
delicious juxtaposition from Friday. I was out on the street and me and my friend were saying that you've got like the nicest bouncers in London. They make you feel so like, because you know you've got that line there.
Yeah, we need to enforce that. And actually it's really interesting because I don't really like the word bouncers because, you know, door staff quite often in pubs bring a completely different vibe to the place, you know, when they're all badged up and they're wearing like stab fruit vests and they got high vis on and they look really menacing. And you know, they're the same guys, but we've just sat them down and spoken to them about the fact that we want them to be like ghosts in the background, not visible. They wear their normal clothes and they work as like really just to make people feel safe and comfortable and happy and make sure that we adhere to the rules without being over the top.
Because that's one thing I've noticed since we've been walking through today and when I was here having drinks, it feels like you guys have done 1,000 little things incredibly well. And I think that's what's kind of add to the summation of the Devonshire is this huge explosion. And we're going to get onto that. But I think, me and my friend, we were having a few Guinnesses literally outside. I was like, when you said the word ghost, I was like, that makes complete sense because they're big, imposing lads, but they're just so softly spoken. It just makes such a delicious little difference. But what I want to start with is octopaddy. So I found, and I literally thought octopaddy, what a hilarious phrase.
Yeah.
So tell me about your journey to London and then how did Osh turn into octopaddy?
Well, I was fortunate and unfortunate at the same time. I was good at maths in school and university, and so I was good at maths, chemistry, physics, applied maths, and a bit of biology. So, you know, when you do really well in those subjects in the 80s, the assumption is made by your teachers you're going to be an engineer. So I went to UCD in 1986 to study engineering first year. Didn't have any money at all and wanted to have a part-time job, and getting a job in a pub at the time was really quite difficult because it was a good job, was well paid, and the entry into the business was very difficult because you had to know somebody. And I really searched and tested because I wanted to work in a good pub. And there was a friend of a friend whose dad knew the guy who owned the Stag's Head in Dublin, Peter Shaffrey at the time, lovely Cavan man. And the procedure was that you had to write a letter to the barman, Francie McGann, the head barman.
Francie McGann, what a name.
Yeah, and Francie would get all these letters all the time and he'd decide based on the letter whether you'd get an interview. And anyway, I sent my letter in, waited for about 3 weeks, got a letter back in the post saying, Dear Mr. Rogers, you've been accepted for an interview on Tuesday, 5th of January, whatever it was, at 6 p.m. Do not be late and look forward to seeing you. And that was it, in old-fashioned type with a signature at the bottom and a little stag's head headed note paper. And I was really excited about this. Came along to my interview. There was 3 guys sitting in front of me, all with white shirts and ties, you know, a couple of guys after me. We all had an interview. And we went into Francie's office. I went into Francie's office and Francie was on the other side. And he's a gruff, older, typical Dublin, almost humourless barman of, you know, hundreds of years of experience. He looks
like. Come a bit closer to this. Yeah.
And
perfect.
I sat down and he's gone, Rogers. I said, yeah, Oisín Rogers. He says, Rogers, he says, I interview dozens of people and only 1 in every 15 or 20 gets a job. And even then, most of them only last about a week. So I'm probably wasting your time, but I have one question for you. And I said, yeah, go on. He said, a pint of Guinness is £1.06. A pint of Harp is £1.09. A whiskey is £1.03. And a dash of lemonade is 15p. A vodka is £1.07. And a gin is £1.27. If a man comes into me and he orders 2.5 pints of Guinness, 2 pints of Harp, 2 whiskies, a gin and tonic, and a vodka and lemonade, tell me how much that would come to, please. And I said, that's £14.12. And he said, right, you can start on Friday, but you won't last the week, I can tell by the set of you. And that was the end of the interview until I came in on the Friday.
And then describe. So he's saying, right, you're not going to survive the. Well, I mean, because that maths I would never get. My brain doesn't just not get maths. But the so you absolutely kind of you say it's £14.25. It says you're not going to last a week.
Someone's going to check that. It's the wrong answer because I've forgotten that skill now because it was something that you did used to have to do.
Yeah,
you know, because you would have to know how much a round was because tills didn't add up in those days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm just not maths and numbers. I had to do extra learning for maths. But so he says you're not going to last a week. Tell me the first. The journey into that first week and then into Octopaddy.
So it was a part-time job. So I used to do 3 nights a week. So I'd do Thursday, Friday, and maybe Wednesday the following week. And then that was the way it went. And then when you had done your 3 shifts at the end of the night, you get paid a brown envelope with 60 quid in it, which 60 punts at the time was a lot of money. And, there was an expectation that you'd be really good at your job. And I remember showing up on my first shift, which was a Thursday, and being like really apprehensive because obviously the youngest guy there, I just turned 18, working with really proper, fast, old school Irish barmen who knew exactly what they were doing. And, you go in there into that cauldron and it's a sink or swim very quickly. And Francie actually had this thing where he either liked you or didn't like you. And if you didn't like you, you were gone in 2 days, like end of story. But if he did like you, he was the nicest, kindest, most supportive, brilliant, fabulous guy. And he taught me an awful lot there because, the simple things like keep your head up, always know who's waiting. Even if there's 10 people waiting, make sure the 10th guy knows that you're going to get to him. Serve 3 guests at a time. Always know how much the round is. Always have enough Guinness poured. That sort of thing that, I think people coming into our business nowadays don't get that overview of what we're doing, and it was really coming from a place of pride of being able to do it really well and having done it over a long period.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Honestly, means the absolute world to me. I'd be so grateful for a small favour, please. It is so hard growing a YouTube channel. It is so bloody hard. If you please enjoy these videos, just click the subscribe button. More subscribers equals bigger guests equals better conversations, and hopefully you can learn more as you build your food and drink brand. Thank you so much. As you said there about the pride and the fact, and this is probably my naivety, but the fact you had to write a letter, like a full-blown letter, to get a job in a pub now. As I interviewed the guys from Honest Burger, really lovely guys, and they were saying one thing that really fucks them off at the minute is how hospitality now has become like a step job for so many people.
I think it's always been like that in England though.
Really?
And I found that over here, and even when I came first, I arrived here in 89, I really found that the culture of people working in pubs compared to what I was used to was a vast difference, Well, because even then and all the way through, I think people think, I need some money. I can't be bothered to get a real job. I'll get a job in the pub for a bit. And, people come and go. It's very transient. Anyone who's half decent gets promoted to assistant manager very quickly. And, the standards are not as high and the technical ability is not as high. And I think also the whole way that guests are looked after and how people feel is not looked at in the same way as certainly it used to be in Dublin in those days. So I really was very fortunate to get that head start.
And you said Francis taught you loads. Like, what specific things did he teach you that you still believe kind of drip into the Devonshire today? Like when I'm here on Friday.
Honestly, I think about this a lot. And obviously I've talked about the technical bits, about speed and making sure the beer's great and making sure you have positive interactions with the guests and the guests feel something. But it's more than that. It's a timelessness. It's a kind of a respect for the history and the timeless position of what the pub is. And then the other thing is the whole value culture of what's going on. And that I mentioned the pride, but there's also things like, having things clean and tidy, making sure things are ordered and are presented in an orderly way, and that the stuff you need to do your job correctly are all in the right position, and making sure that things are prepared and that you're not going to run out of stuff and that everything works. It sounds simple, but there's a lot of
Texture.
of thought and planning and texture, to use your word, that goes into these things. Yeah.
One thing that, as I said before we hit record, that just fascinates me endlessly is so I've done a bit of work for, I think I sent you some, I don't know if you tried it, that white mouse soup, that Irish, as I said, chili crack.
Yeah.
So they're based, or crack I should say, based in Dublin. They started at the Fumbly Market. And now they've built that kind of brand. But I used to go over there a lot to Dublin. And I felt like, as I say, there's this real texture to it. I can't really put my finger, I can't pinpoint a word on it. So I've kind of experienced it in that regard, and I've experienced working with Lorcan and his family who run the business. But one thing that fascinates me is some of the best storytellers in the world are Irish. James Joyce, Oscar Wilde.
You got O'Casey, you got Beckett,
Beckett.
So many.
Being an Irishman, why do you think? These, like Ulysses, is one of the best books of. People say it's one of the best books of all time.
I've tried to read it about
I
eight
can't get
times.
through it.
Yeah.
I can't get through it.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
I think there's a value thing and a culture of enjoying talking shite, and being able to go back and have entertaining conversations, and conversations generally being an important thing. And for me, it's really important because I think our business is all about stories, and what you're bringing in terms of the lore and the story that you give guests to be able to tell when they leave the business is really, really central to what I think pubs and restaurants and places where people gather are about.
I hadn't thought of it like that. I suppose there's constant, the currency and the energy is the storytelling.
But if you think about the Devonshire, it's all about stories, it really is. And they're true, luckily, the bit about me and Charlie meeting up, the bit about why Ashley's here, the whole lore and story about the Guinness, about the butchery, about what we've done with the cooking and the fire and the wood, and all of the trials and tribulations. We're very conscious that that's currency, and that people need these bits and pieces in order to sort of have something to tell about their experience here.
Yes. Yeah, I think all those stories intertwine, and then that's because one of the things I wanted to ask you is how this explosion happened. As I said, I was with George and Dom in Suffolk, and they were saying our friend Osh is about to open this pub called the Devonshire. This was kind of, I think, mid to early October times. I think you guys opened...
We opened on the 5th of November,
The 5th of November, yeah. And then it just went, this explosion happened.
Yeah.
I remember my first time I came here, long story, but I'd lost my passport. Absolutely. It was a nightmare. I'd lost my fucking passport. I was meant to be going to Paris the next day. And I came in here and I had 2 pints of Guinness, and it just felt like a big cuddle. I was like, this is
so nice to hear.
This is what a great booze is about. But what would you say, how was there anything you put in place beforehand for this explosion to happen, or how did it happen?
There was loads of things, and in hindsight it was that theme of stories is really important. So this green room that we're sitting in at the moment, which was an afterthought, we thought really long and hard about what the story of this would be, and we wanted to be a place for art and music and people who are creative minded to feel comfortable and safe, and that's really worked. The same with the little booths in there that we swap around for the restaurant. The way the bar is, the little nods to culture. all of those things. And we were very fortunate that Charlie and Ash and I had so much time to plan and think about all these things. And every single plan or thought that we had made a story, I think. Down to the knives that we used for the steak in the restaurant by Cato. That was one of our great stories and really, really lovely collaboration with them. And I think, all of those things together give us a bit of texture and colour that people can take away and go, oh, well, I experienced this, or I saw that and I quite like that, or whatever it is, Even the sign writing on the front, to go and find Perry, who's a old school hand signed writer, to properly do all the outside in the way it would have been done 100 years ago. It's a nice little vignette.
Yes, and when you talked about at the beginning about the guys on the door being, we want them to feel like ghosts and wear their normal clothes. That is the story. And as I opened it with the story I had of the Devonshire when I was here on Friday was that I was like, we're getting ushered in, but it's in the most calm and kind of serene, warm way, which I've never had before in a pub.
But that really comes from the culture, Everything we do is pointed at our business, which is to make people feel comfortable, safe, happy, and well looked after. That is core to what we're doing, and we think about that all the time. Whether it's where furniture is, how the staff engage with you, how you check in, how things work, how you feel when you get served, all of those bits and pieces. And the door, or the we don't call them door staff. We have a word for them, and I've forgotten what it is.
It's Monday morning, mate. Don't worry.
Yeah.
What's the story of you? Because Charlie was at was Flatiron.
Yeah.
And then Ashley was at the Fat Duck.
Yeah.
How did the three trio come together?
Charlie and I go back to a round table discussion that happened, I think it was around 2012-13, with the Caterer magazine, and we just happened to be sat at a round table with a load of other operators talking about how the business was at the time. We ended up getting on quite well during the conversation, went for a pint afterwards, and ended up becoming reasonably close and chatting about stuff. And Charlie and I did a project in 2014 where at the ship we roasted a whole ox on a huge, great big pole with cartwheels on either end. There's a great video of it on YouTube. It's very fun. One of the best things I've ever did. And we sort of collaborated on that and began talking about doing a pub at that stage. But I had no intention of doing anything apart from staying at Young's for a long time, and it gradually came to fruition over a long time. So there had been hundreds of hours of conversation about this before we even looked at this site. So we had an idea what direction we were going to go in. And Charlie's a wonderful, wonderful guy. He's so clever. He thinks really slow. He's amazing with numbers. He's strategically one of the best operators out there. And, his journey with Flatiron to go from 0 to 13 restaurants over 7-8 years is an incredible story. And that, for me, Flatiron, I think, is one of the best, if not the best, multiple operating restaurant chains in the country. And, it's credit to him. And he's taken a lot of that expertise in here with me and Ashley. And I think it really shows. Ashley sort of came along following a conversation that me and Charlie had been having, because we both remembered a particular dish at the Heinz Head in Bray.
Oh, I've been there.
Going back to 2003, 4, 5, before I got a Michelin star, where there was this suet pudding, and it was ox tail and kidney, and in a sauce, really delicious steamed pudding with the sauce over the top. And I can still remember the feeling of putting my spoon through it and then tasting this delicious meat. And it stuck out to me as the best iteration of traditional British pub food I'd ever had. I said this to Charlie in a conversation at Norman's Coaching Horses one afternoon, and he's gone, fuck, I remember that dish as well. Absolutely banging. I wonder who was behind that, because obviously it's not a Heston dish. And I've gone, I'm certain it was Ashley. And he's gone, Ashley, do you know him? Not really, but I've got a friend who knows him. Do you know him? Not really, I've got a friend who knows him. So we both reached out to him, and 2 days later we're having a pint with him, and that was it.
And how are you similar and different? So one of the things that fascinates me is how like the storytelling bubbles down from the top, right?
Yeah.
But I love to know how you guys are similar, and then how you're different across the three of you.
Well, we all love pubs, and we all love pints, and we all love stories. We're all really good family men as well, I think. And, we've all got kids. We all like our holidays. We all like a bit of balance. But I think we're all completely besotted and think all the time about our business, what we do, and pubs, restaurants, how to do things well. I think that would be how I would describe how similar we are.
I love the word besotted. I haven't
Completely.
heard that describe that as some people say obsessed, but I think that's quite a nefarious way of saying it.
Yeah, it's a bit more emotional.
Yeah, besotted. Because I think I'm besotted with this podcast. I love that how a word can completely change things.
And I think that's the similarity, and we really, really care about it. And all three of us really care about the details, but I think we care about the details in different ways, which I think is interesting, because actually, you look at my career and what I've done, and you look at Charlie's career and what I've done, you look at Ashley's career and what he's done, they're really, really, really different. I've always been the front of house, front man, maitre d' type, publican, mine host type character who deals with customers day to day and staff and customer interaction day to day. Charlie's much more thoughtful, overview, a little bit more corporate, always about the big picture and, the business side of things, and doing the deals and making sure that the margins work, and making sure that best suppliers and best practice and all that. And Ashley has always been the food perfectionist. I mean, he invented the triple cooked chip, for God's sake. Do you know what I mean? And, things like the journey to get to the bread that we've done, the journey to get to the chocolate mousse. We were cooking for a full year before we opened down at Mission Kitchen. Not a lot of people know that, but
that's where I used to be based in Vauxhall.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I was based for 6 years.
So we started cooking there. We started cooking before that, but we took a space in Mission Kitchen in January 23. And we were still cooking there in October. And so that's where all the dishes and the cooking was developed. And Ashley oversaw that with Jamie and us, yeah. And our exec Ev as well, who still works with us on the food side.
I have just discovered a secret weapon. Please, please, please don't tell anyone. This secret weapon helps you get listed, stay listed, and most importantly, grow. This secret weapon is being used by absolutely banging brands like Bold Bean Co., Perfect Head, Neat, Trip, and Cheeky Panda. No wonder they're absolutely smashing it. But look, are you ready to get your mitts on this secret weapon and absolutely smash it too? I am so thrilled to announce our brand new podcast partner, North Star. What is North Star, I hear you thinking? North Star is a monthly subscription to an online platform giving you access to category data, category insights, anytime, any place, anywhere. It's basically the Netflix for challenger brands. It levels the playing field. Why do you need category data? Well, the first thing is making your pitch speak the buyers and retail language is so important. It's going to help you unlock more listings, unlock deeper distribution with existing clients, back the right NPD, and actually understand how your competition is performing. But the even better news, are you ready to rock and roll at your next range review? You no longer need to hire a full-time category manager. Instead, just parachute in North Star when your next Waitrose, Sainsbury's or Tesco range reviews coming up. They're your outsourced in-house partner. Save money. Their team will come in. They'll help you prep, plan and smash your next range review. I'm so excited to be partnering with North Star. Check them out in the episode description below. Delighted to announce the extension of our partnership with the wonderful Billy and Paul from Mackenzie Jones, but even more exciting, they have just launched a brand new brand as part of Mackenzie Jones called MKJ Ignite. MKJ Ignite is a recruitment firm which specialises full shebang, focus entirely on challenge brand space. They work with some incredible brands, Lucky Saint, Good Race, Purdy and Fig, Hunt and Gather and Real Superfoods. They can support with your hiring needs across all levels, top to bottom, junior entry-level jobs, all the way through up to MD and CEO level. So if you're looking for a field sales stomper, a sales wizard, an ops guru, a supply chain sensei, you name it, MKJ Ignite can help you out. And look, if you're looking to wet your whistle, ignite your curiosity, then check out the poddy we recorded with them back in July. laden with wisdom, all about like do's and don'ts of hiring and like how to create the perfect job description. You will love it. It's interesting seeing the kind of, as you say, the texture between you three, and then how it kind of spills into this manifestation.
Well, it was
I
think an interesting observation came from a very good friend of mine, Bob, when he met the three of us for a pint. He's gone, it's really interesting, you three, because Osh, you're total fucking chaos, and I do think in a chaos way, whereas Charlie's complete and absolute order, and then you got Ashley, who's complete and absolute perfection. And I think between the three of us, we got a good balance.
Yeah, chaos, order, perfection. I love the synergy. I think I've listened to a couple of, read a couple of interviews you've done, Osh, in terms of. I think you talk about the coaching horses, another boozer in Soho.
Love it, yeah.
And I think you talk about, is it the landlady there or the landlord? And you say the best pubs have to have a landlord or a publican who's there kind of a lot of the time. I'm very set on that as an idea, and have been always. And I think that's changed a lot in England, because even when I came over, most pubs had a landlord, and usually the landlord lived upstairs, or the landlady. Yeah. And just because of the way that the corporate owners of pubs over the years have, sold off the accommodation upstairs, in relative terms, they've lowered the wages that landlords get and the benefits they get, and how they're perceived. And then there's the added baggage of the job itself, which has become much more paperwork based, with all of the red tape and the procedures which we rightly have to do, and that takes a lot of the time away from landlords. Also, a lot of them only work 40 hours a week, which for me is bonkers. But then again, I'm a dinosaur. You do see some incredible pubs though, and when you do see an incredible pub, the chances are 99% there's a landlord or landlady or a figurehead there who is in charge of it, runs it, and takes pride and responsibility for the day to day. Yeah, it's fascinating, because I think I go to a lot of pubs, right? Every weekend I'm going to a different pub.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. But I think a lot of them can feel kind of a bit IKEA flat pack, in that it's like, it's rinse and especially with the big corporate chains.
Yeah.
There's numerous of them, right? I used to work for a cheese wholesaler called Harvey and Brockless. Used to be a man in a van when I left uni. And I'd go into the kitchens and you'd see this. It was kind of the system behind the scene was, it was, as you say, kind of flat pack with the menus. It was the same thing going to each and every pub.
Yeah.
And I think what I'm trying to work out, whether the kind of the birth of gastropubs, is that what's the good, bad, and ugly of that, in your honest opinion?
Well, going back to that flat pack thing, I think it's a really good observation from you. And what you're saying about that is actually that they homogenise the design, yes. They homogenise the idea, and yeah, that's fine. But it takes away all the other dimensions and the characters and the wonder and the beauty and the stories from what you're doing. And I think if you look at a pub business or a restaurant business from the point of view of you have to make some money, then you're on a loser. Because if you look at a pub and go, okay, right, that's the Dog and Duck, we're going to buy the Dog and Duck, and we need to make £300,000 a year profit. So if we need to do that, then we need to turn over £1 million. And if we're going to turn over £1 million, then we need a manager who's gets paid 40,000, and we only need 6 staff, and then we want to make the kitchen like this, and then we'll buy the cheaper food, and that will make sure that we get the bottom line. And if you think about it from that way, I think you're fucked. Because what we've always thought about it from the other way. We want to make a place where people feel something. We want the food to be great. We want to have lots of stories. We want to have different areas where people feel different in. We want to have a place for people to hide. And if we do all those things, then we should make some money. So that really is the difference, I think, between what Charlie and Ash and I have done and what the big corporates do. And I think the result is what you've described, that flat pack feeling.
Yeah, it's like fuck me going to a pub. It's like there's a dog bowl with some biscuits. And it feels like it's
generic.
It's so generic. Yeah.
And it's thought by a lot of the decisions that you see that you don't like are thought about by someone who's not there, who's in a head office in a marketing department somewhere, who's saying, right, sending an email out saying, this is the list of spritzes that you're going to be selling for the summer, and I want you to all buy into these spritzes. When actually you might be sending it to a lovely old country pub where the blokes don't even know what a spritz is and don't bloody care because they just want to have a nice pint.
Yeah. There's a quote, I want to tease out some quotes from Irish writers because I think it's as fascinating as kind of like a launch pad. But Oscar Wilde's got a quote which is, everything popular is wrong. And I think about that a lot.
Yeah.
And I'd love to know, like, what's one truth you believe staunchly that you think most people would disagree with you on?
Oh, I'll give you a good one. I don't think there's any such thing as a good trend.
Any such thing as a good trend?
People always ask me, or often ask me in these things, what do you think the next new thing is going to be? What's the next new trend? What do you think are the trends going to be next year? And I've always kind of avoided that, because if you try and think, everybody's going to drink, I don't know, pear cider, and you focus on that, it might work for a little bit, but it won't work for a long time. And eventually you'll be seen as, that's the pear cider guy. You know, you're much better off thinking, what do people always like? And what have they always enjoyed? Decent beer, comfortable furniture, good lighting, bit of fun. And I always think that way about things that are timeless rather than of a time.
Timeless versus of a time. Yeah, I think there's a guy interviewed called Rory Sutherland, who's like a marketing, really interesting marketing guy, works for Ogilvy, and he was saying that you can only see when, like, as you look, the longer you've been in business, you can see how pointless trends are. But when you're in it for so short a time, it feels like this is where it's going. And I think even vegan meat, like that, everyone thought the whole world was going to fucking change.
Yeah.
With vegan, obviously there's always a vegan dish on the menu now, but even that's beginning to subside.
Yeah,
over the last,
they've got burned, those companies, haven't they? Quite a bit recently.
Completely burnt.
Yeah.
It's endlessly fascinating. And what is the story you would like? We've talked a lot about stories, but like, what is the story you want people to go and say to their friends after they've been here?
I can answer that really simply. I want people to tell their friends that they felt good, that they felt that they had value for money, and that they had value for time, and to express that in a way that will make other people feel positive about what we're trying to do.
Mm. And then you talked about time versus timeless.
Yeah,
super interesting. How is the Devonshire going to stay timeless?
Well, time's really interesting. I mean, we have a good conversation about time because everyone talks about value, and you know, obviously, you do need to have value, and we've thought carefully about that. You know about the set menu, not 29 quid. You know about the pint of Beck's for £4.95. The Budvar is £4.60. And you can come in here and get a gin and tonic for £8, double gin and tonic for £8. So from a value and price point, we've done that. But price is not value, and we've proposed the concept of value for time rather than value for money, because time is that currency that is way more valuable to people than money. I think time is more important than money, and when someone decides that they're going to spend part of their evening or their whole evening or a lunchtime with us, that's an investment that they've made, that they think, all right, I'm going to go to the Devonshire and I've got a reservation at 1 o'clock and I'm going to be there till 4 and I might stay till 6 for some pints. That's a huge investment of a chunk of their incredibly valuable downtime or their investable time that they give to us. So I think from our point of view, we need to deliver on that. So to make sure that the time they spend it in a way that they feel good about. And that's, I think, a lot of the bits and pieces we do in terms of values and how people feel, and the training and the bits and pieces and the experience and the food and the drink should all feed into that. And that's really where we're coming from on the time front.
And we talked about you talked about your training, we've talked about Octopaddy, we've talked about what you're building here. What would you say is like something that most other landlords don't know? Like, what are some of your principles that you'd pass on to? I know your daughter Laura is working here as well. Like, what would you pass on?
I don't know. It's a difficult one. I think you just need to be good. Try to be good, and try to be good from the point of view of what the customers feel, not what you think is necessarily what you should be doing. I think it's important to put yourself in the customer's skin and shoes, and think about how they feel. What's the atmosphere like? What could be irritating, and try and take those bits out.
That's another thing about the kind of, whether you call it not gastro wank's probably too strong a phrase, but those flat pack pubs, is the noise. Because this one thing I just thought about when I was on Friday, I was like, because sometimes you can go to a pub and it's really echoey.
Yeah, we think about that too.
Yeah, like how does that? How important is the kind of the noise of a?
I think it's more that this is an interesting one for me, because if you go back 40, 50, 60, 100, 200 years into pubs always had nooks, crannies. They had little dividers, screens, soft seating. You think about snugs, you think about those beautiful Victorian screens that would be all through the pubs with glass and nice leather finishes. And then they had the anaglypta, which is this raised wallpaper, which by the way is very good for soundproofing. And there's another one called Lincrusta that you'll see in old pubs. It's like a very, very heavily textured wallpaper that's got swirls and stuff in it like that. A lot of that stuff was taken out by the big pub co's in the last 30, 40, 50 years on the basis that they thought that if they took it out, they'd have more space. But actually, I have a feeling that people, when they come to the pub, quite often want to hide, that they want to find themselves in a corner or somewhere comfortable and soft, and where they don't necessarily want to be seen drinking. Restaurants are different. I think people want to be seen in restaurants, but in pubs I think it's important to have places where you can't be seen. And we've thought really hard about that. And if you look at the booths and the screens and the way the tables are done, you got places where you won't be seen, and that's important. And carpet is another one, of course. Yeah. And a lot of these places, a lot of those old Victorian pubs, they've pulled everything out and they've turned them into like big square rooms. And from there you get this issue with noise and the fact that you can't hide anywhere, that you're so visible. And I don't think that's right for pubs. Not all pubs anyway.
Oh my God, I am so excited. It feels like Hungary is finally swimming in the big leagues. I can't believe this. It's absolutely mental. But delighted to announce that Big Fish, yes, Big Fish, are part of the podcast. Perry's been on the podcast 3 times. Listeners absolutely love it. Some of our most downloaded and cherished episodes of all time. But Big Fish are behind literally so many brands in your cupboard, in your weekly shop. Charlie Bigham, Year Valley, Tyrrell's, Clipper Tea, Goo, Rana. I mean, mate, the list is longer than the River Nile. But they also share risk and invest in brands that they really believe are a force for good. That are brands that they believe are going to be the next big thing. Like Howder, the snack that gives back. But even more exciting news. Big Fish want to speak to the next wave of small challenger food and drink brands that are destined for big things. The raconteurs, the movers, shakers, buccaneering visionaries. So look, if you want to speak to Big Fish and just have a chat, get your brand in front of them, then drop me a message. My mate Louis from Local Beer, Amazing Beer, was in their office, aka La Fishbowl, last week chatting to Perry, Freddie and the Big Fish crew. So drop me a message if you would like to speak to them. Boemi, our beloved sponsor, are helping build the fastest growing challenger food and drink brands. Look, if you're a small brand just starting out and need your first indie stockist, your first 100 stockists to wholesale, Boemi are the platform to categorically speed that up. But if you're a big brand wanting to get bigger, Boemi are also insane. They make field sales marble smooth, silky slick. They're just epic. Ollie's been on this podcast twice actually. They saw a 29% uplift in sales when using Boemi to check major malt listings availability. Insane. 29% uplift by downloading an app. Insane. Lucky Saint, my boy Aaron Duff, who's coming on this podcast in a couple of weeks, he uses it to manage a team of 30 people, and Lucky Saint have unlocked 500 draft listings by using Boemi. Look, you've got to get involved with this stuff. It's absolutely insane, and it will categorically change your life. It's just the sickest platform. I use it all the time at Islands. You said your brain is kind of more chaotic, or your mind, the way you think, and I kind of relate to that a lot. How does your brain like work? How does it?
Oh God, I don't know the answer to that, but I do know I jump from thought to thought to thought very quickly, and that somehow works for pubs. But the theme of chaos is very important too. I think without chaos, then pubs don't work. There's an element of chaos that has to be there, managed, of course, and looked after, that makes the excitement and makes things happen. I think if everything's ordered and you use all the same furniture and you have everything really set like a restaurant or beautifully symmetric, then you don't get the flashpoints and the wonder that happens in pubs. The great thing about pubs is you come in here and you stand, you have a pint, you don't know who you're going to end up talking to. And we've always said that we'd like for the bin man and the chairman to be able to meet on a level playing field out there, and that's really, really important to us. That you could be a billionaire and you could be stood there and you could be talking to somebody who doesn't make very much money, but you can still have a fantastic interaction and a really good experience. And that, believe it or not, happens here all the time.
And how do you create that? Because I love the word chaos is something I think.
Yeah.
The reason I like chaos and imperfection is because every human being has an element of chaos and imperfection. Even though with all this, people present ourselves as perfect. I think one of the reasons I think pubs work is, as you say, it's a place you can kind of hide, or the ones that work really well are those little elements of, as you say, the nooks and crannies and the imperfections. Like that's what humans are ultimately.
And I also think most people's lives are so incredibly ordered. People have jobs where they have to be at the desk at a particular time, leave at a particular time. They have to wear a certain uniform. They're not allowed to put their feet on the chairs. They have to work in these spreadsheety, ordered Zoom meeting type environments where their lunch break is at exactly the same time. They get the same train home to work. And then at the weekends, they play golf at the same time and all of this stuff. And I think you need to break out of that a little bit, and I think pubs can really give people kind of a different environment and sensation. And it doesn't matter what you wear when you go to the pub. It doesn't matter what time you come, what time you go, whether you might have to only have a half pint or 1 pint, or you might have 6. If you have a Scotch egg or not, where you sit, where you stand, you can change where you move around. And that, for me, is really, really the essence of what the British pub is. It gives people the freedom to be chaotic and live in a kind of and spend some time in a chaotic place, which is somehow wholesome.
Yes, chaotic, wholesome chaoticness. Well, yeah, beautiful way of putting
I call it lovely chaos.
Lovely chaos.
Yeah.
So what do you think cultures like Spain and France and Italy, who have like bistros and bistros and like kind of more, kind of bistros and bars. What do you think those cultures lack for not having like a local boozer?
I'm definitely not going to criticise the Spanish or the French or the Italians on how they socialise and their bars and pub culture. But I do think it's interesting that pubs, in the way we see and know them, only really work in the British Isles.
That's what I'm trying to understand. It's not criticism of them.
But that is absolutely a timeless, wonderful thing, and it's because your father, your grandfather, your great grandfather, and everybody you're connected to knew and loved that culture, and that's what's been keeping it alive here. And it becomes part of who we are and what we are, that we have a pub. And you think about, for example, think about soap operas. What's the big soap operas? You got EastEnders, Corrie. What's the Emmerdale, right?
Yeah. I was going to say Hollyoaks.
when the people who write those things want to create some kind of tension, and they want the posh family to meet the not so interesting family, or they want people to be in a social environment where people can watch a piece of action that's very important, they always go to the pub, or maybe the cafe. But the pub in each one of those is iconic. People will remember the name of those pubs, and when you think about the series, you'll think about the carpet and the barman and the things that happen there. And there's a very good reason for that, because they're a mirror a little bit of what British culture is seen to be and what it is. And I think the pub has a very important role in that, and will continue to.
And also, if I think to myself, every time if I've been feeling really low or really happy or confused or any kind of the whole vector of emotions, there's usually at some point punctuated with a trip to the pub, whether it's with my mum, whether it's with my pals, whether it's with doing a business meeting. There's always, the pub punctuates society, I think, in some respects, or culture.
I'm glad to hear it, and long may it continue.
The what I want to talk about is I saw it on Instagram, if there's some on the walls, is these pictures and these reflections.
Oh yeah,
I think they're unreal.
No, that's very kind of you to say, but yeah, it was a part of the process of coming up with how the Devonshire would be was me moving to Soho. Obviously I live in Richmond with Tracy and the girls, but from a work point of view, I lived at the Guinny more or less sort of 3 to 5 days a week when I was there, and loved living in Mayfair. But I've always wanted to come to Soho, and Soho might as well be 20 miles from Mayfair. It's a completely different place. You talk about chaos. Soho is chaos.
Lovely chaos.
And it's brilliant chaos, and I loved it. So about a month before I left the Guinea, in June 22, Charlie and I signed a lease on a flat in Dean Street, and so I pretty much moved there. And I felt it was important to be a resident of Soho if we're going to open a pub here, because there's nothing worse than coming in and making assumptions about an area without really knowing it. So I wanted to live and breathe Soho and get to know the other pub landlords and the people who own the clubs and the people on the street and the coffee bar owners and the restaurateurs and the tramps and the lunatics. And I really, really got myself involved and I had a lot of fun and still do, getting to know the real locals of here. And part of that was having the camera. And I think I took my first one of those silly photos around the time I moved in. And I thought, oh, that's all right. Maybe I can do a little series of those and put them up in the pub. And that's where that's come from. So they're all very much Soho photos.
Yeah, I mean, they're beautiful. I implore everyone who's listening to this go onto Osh's Instagram and look at them, because they are visually super, just lure you in. And I think the reflection of things is super fascinating. What did you learn that you didn't expect to learn with coming to Soho about this part of London? You said it's 20 miles from Mayfair, which is super
I think there's something, for those of us who've got that chaotic brain, there's something very, very attractive about Soho. And I realised this a very long time ago. And I go on about the Coach and Horses, and that is an iconic pub which is full of an incredibly eclectic, eccentric bunch of customers anytime you go in there. And that's I suppose a reflection on Soho itself. You think of Soho and it's the square between Piccadilly Circus, Leicester Square, Oxford Circus and Tottenham Court Road. And I think people who are coming out of one of those stations with the intention of heading towards Soho, there's an expectation of colour and wonder and fun and maybe some drinking, maybe some art, culture, theatre, and the gay side of things, then, coffee, amazing food, and there's an expectation that you're going to be entertained. And that for me is very, very important. And to be living in the middle of that with a chaotic brain and planning to open a big business like this has been huge amount of fun. And I've met some really, really great people and had some great times.
Who are some of the most interesting people you've met?
I don't know. I know Dennis and Elliot who bought Jerry's Club. The staff of the Coach and Horses have been fantastic. Got to meet all the crew from the Union Club and the Academy, and my very lovely friend Paddy Renouf from Meard Street. All the crew from the Union Club, Jazz After Dark, the guys up at the Blues Bar in Kingley Street. There's a great kind of village feel among the people that'll have a coffee in the morning and have a bit of chat, and the dog walkers and people going to school. And I think if you don't live here, you don't get an idea for that. And then there's the French house with its bunch of artists and West End actors and fabulous writers and creatives and painters, and there's a huge layers of what's going on here. But for me the thread between everything is that chaos and that creativity.
The chaos and the creativity. How is Mayfair different from this? What was Mayfair?
I loved Mayfair and I loved running the Guinny, and Mayfair is an area where people concentrate on creating wealth and high value things. So there's a lot of government, a lot of hedge fundiness, a lot of big retail, a lot of property management, and those guys are fabulous customers, and we had a really great time there. But I think they don't necessarily feel as comfortable on this side of Regent Street as they do over the other side.
When we look in the reflection, when you look in your reflection, what about yourself scares you?
I would think a good example of this is during the incredibly intense few months from June when we signed the lease here until November when we actually opened. There was an absolute avalanche of work that needed to be done from the point of view of turning this from a chicken shop into what looks like a pub that's been here for a while. And the intensity of the dealings with the builders, the contractors, the suppliers, the staff, the setup, the purchasing of equipment and furniture and all of that stuff really became a whirlwind. It was incredibly intense. Charlie, Ashley and I worked, a lot of 18-hour days in an environment that I'm not absolutely used to, because it involved being on a computer and talking to people on the phone and dealing with contractors and timelines and schedules and cash and all of those things. And I found that incredibly stressful and intense on the basis that it was such a huge investment and there was so much involved in making it a success. And I realised close to the time we were opening that I wasn't able to tell the difference between being excited and shitting myself. So there was this kind of mad, intense, emotional feeling happening where I wasn't sure what the signals coming back to me were, because I was so in it. And that was kind of a learning for me that they do actually feel quite similar.
Excitement and nerves are the same thing.
Yeah.
I say that to myself from doing this because I get nervous before I do podcasts. I always do, yeah.
You certainly don't seem nervous to me.
Yeah, no, I do. Even today on the way up, I was, I just always shit myself a little bit. But,
oh my goodness.
But I believe it's a good thing.
Oh, definitely.
I think it adds what I've come to, because I've done talks in front of a couple of hundred people, and I was like, I'm actually fucking shit myself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then after I've done them a couple of times, I'm like, it just sharpens the saw.
Yeah.
Those nerves add a certain gravitas to things that
well, I remember the last couple of weeks in October, because we had planned to open mid-October, and of course these things always slip a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
And that last couple of weeks, and you just do the calculations about how much money is going out compared to what should be coming in, and you look at the numbers and you absolutely go, oh Jesus, and that last sort of headlong 15, 20 days from the point of view we thought, listen, we've got to get this open, to actually getting it open. And there's some really lovely photos on the wall in the green room that were taken by Mike Taylor, which kind of punctuates that for me. And I quite often look at those days and I go, oh my God, that front bar didn't even have a bar in it 2 days before we opened. It looked like an absolute, the worst disaster that had happened. And to get through that and have it done and get the carpentry finished and French polished and open and get the beer flowing was just an incredible time.
How do you surf the chaos of the sweet, I almost imagine a wave of shitting yourself versus excitement.
Yeah.
It's a wave of chaos, and that relates to me massively. How did you, because I'm asking this selfishly, how do you like stay above the water? Not stay above the water, but stay not calm, but like keep. Do you know what I mean? If in that,
Honestly, I do think while the plan and the timeline was there in front of me, I always thought about the moment that I was in and trying to get the shit done that needs to be done right now. And I'm quite good at getting things done quickly and right now. And I felt like I couldn't think forward for a lot of that time. It was all about right now. I've got to do this list of things that needs to be done right now. And I want it done before the end of the day today. And if it's not done before the end of the day today, it needs to be done tomorrow first thing. And rather than having goals and action plans, which fuck that, by the way. I just had a list of things to fucking sort out.
Yes.
And even if they weren't done to the standard I wanted them to, I wanted to be able to get to a point where they were done and I could move on to the next thing. And that was how I got through it.
yeah, it's almost being in the moment. What did it feel like when you on the day you open? You've had this huge amount of work between the three of you lads.
God, it was...
What's the feeling in your soul?
There was one particular moment where we got the beers on and the beers were delivered and we tested the Guinness. And I think it was only me, Ash, Charlie, Ross, Sam and Mike the photographer were the only ones here. It was probably a Tuesday evening and I pushed it and rushed it and wanted to get to that fucking point where a pint of Guinness would come into a glass. And somehow we managed it. And the technical push that we had to get that done was immeasurably intense. Like, I don't know how the technicians managed it, how the builders managed it, how we managed it, but we managed to pour a few pints. And the very first one I was really fucking happy with. And we knew we'd nailed it. And I just went and I said, look, I'm just going to sit in the fucking corner. And I sat in the corner.
Yes.
And it was pretty emotional.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
And Mike actually took a photo. It's over there. But that, for me, was
the
big moment.
Why is the Guinness like? How do you approach the Guinness differently? Because I, as I said, I was here on Friday. Took my mate Freddie, and I was like, "Trust me, mate, this Guinness is fucking."
I mean, I've done fucking dozens of interviews about Guinness, and it's just so boring, to be honest with you.
Let's do it in one sentence, then.
We put the bloody thing in so it would pour correctly, and we have a good pint, and we keep the glasses clean, and the staff know how to do it. That's it. But we've done the same with the lager. We've done the same with the wine. We've done the same with the chocolate pudding. We've done the same with the cooking of the steak. We've done the same with the way we sharpen the knives for the kitchen. We've done the same with the art. We've done the same with the staff training. We've done the same with the door staff. We've done the same with how the customers feel. So in our terms, the Guinness is a drop in the ocean of the many, many, many things on our huge, big plan of bits. And it's surprising to me still that thing that we know we got it right and we know the Guinness is great, but it seems to colour a lot of people's feeling about what this place is. And weirdly, it makes us seem to people that we're an Irish pub, which we're kind of not, and we're intentionally not. This is a pub for Soho. This is a pub for the people around here to come and have a great time and feel that vibe of being comfortable, safe, happy and well looked after. It's not about Guinness. It's not about Ireland. It's about being in Soho, being in the Devonshire and having that timeless history.
I think I listened to a podcast or an interview you did and you're like, this is a Soho pub with an Irish accent.
Yeah.
And I thought that's a beautiful way of saying it. It's got a little tinge of...
Yeah, there's a lot of it, especially with Ross and Sam here, by the way, and they're legends.
Met them this morning. They're legends.
And it's got an Irish accent, but it's very much not an Irish pub. I think that's really important, that people feel that it's for everybody.
What does I asked some random questions as well. What does like a perfect pint of Guinness and the texture of that like teach someone about the texture of Ireland?
Nothing. I would say. I think the overarching thing here is that Guinness were always a brilliantly benevolent and really good thing for Dublin in particular, but Ireland in general. They always looked after their staff. They made sure that everybody who worked for them had really good accommodation and paid them really, really well. They were a philanthropic firm for hundreds of years, like the whole story of how they went to the Caribbean and to Nigeria on the basis that they wanted to help those places. It really is a good value and vibe. And I think
so what's that about the Nigerian bit?
So the reason why Guinness is the biggest beer in Nigeria is because they felt as a rich company, as a rich sort of British company at the time, that it would be philanthropic and a positive thing to go to Africa to set up a big brewery which would give employment and make the life better for those people, and they actually did it.
I'd never heard of that, of them going to Nigeria.
Yeah.
Let's go back.
That was 19th century.
90. That was I thought it was like in the 90s.
But I think there's a kind of an intangible thread through that makes Irish people know that product and what it stands for is a good thing, and I think an awful lot of people don't really talk about it. But I think there's a sort of, it's not benign, it's a positive thing. There's something beautiful about it. And that history, I think, translates in the glass, and I think that's why nobody can copy their marketing, because nobody really gets it or understands it, because it's a big, long, timeless arch.
Big story. What kind of shocked you about London, or like how do you think London's changed Osh, like just being here for so long? I
absolutely adore London, and when people ask me what part of Ireland I'm from, I always go back to I'm a Londoner, because I came here in 1989. I've lived here longer than I lived in Dublin. And, people ask me about what restaurants should they go to in Dublin. I haven't got a clue, because, when I go home, my mum's the best cook, and that's right. I'll know about pubs and stuff, but London's my home and has been for that length of time, and I love it here. And, of course, it is constantly changing, but I do think it's changing for the better all the time. I love the way people say, people quite curmudgeonly come up and go, oh, Soho's completely fucked compared to how I remember it. I was much better when there was more sex shops and, more robberies and, this shop's gone and that shop's gone. But it's always in a state of absolute flux. Yeah, it doesn't matter which road you go down or which street you go down, there's always a new place open and another place closed. It's a transient and constantly evolving, brilliant place. And I love that about here.
Hi guys, super quick one. So excited. Look, for years I've been badgering on about Hungry the podcast. You're probably bored to death. Thanks for putting up with me. But Hungry is also an agency, and we look after one amazing brand called Islands Chocolate. We've had a great time over the year. We've won listings at a load of wholesalers. We've got Milk and More. We've got our first grocery listing coming very soon, which is very sick. But what I'm thrilled to announce is Hungry is merging with HC Consulting. My boy Harry Clark and his wonderful team, he's an absolute G. They do brand strategy, new business and account management. But why I really love working with Harry and why we've got on so well over the last couple of months is Harry was actually the founder of the boozy isolate brand Pops. So he's been in the trenches, he's grafted his face off, he's had the sleepless nights, he's had the turmoil, he's had the triumph. He knows what it is to be a founder. He is a founder. And he's got a proven track record in grocery and out of home. Holy Moly Dips, The Gut Stuff, Savile Drinks, Remio Gelato. So if you're a brand and you're stuck, you're looking for like new business help, you're looking to scale, drop us a message. We'd love to chat. Thank you so much. Back to the old episode. You said, I think it was on an Instagram post, you called your old man a true legend.
Yeah.
I believe my old man's a bloody legend as well. I love him. But what were some of the things he's taught you that kind of maybe not consciously but maybe subconsciously kind of filter into how things are run here?
I don't know. I often think about Dad. My dad's a very placid, fun, incredibly clever academic.
Oh.
And but he loves going to the pub. He loves his friends, and he really values stories and social interaction and being able to spend time with people he loves. And I think they're all really, really positive and wonderful things to bring. And I'd like to think that my own girls would know that too. But one thing I always remember was his dad, Paddy Rogers, had this phrase whenever he was under any kind of pressure or any business pressure, big businessman. He always said, the one thing you should always try and do is to avoid. Sorry, he always used to say the one thing that you should always try and do is to avoid unpleasantness. And I always took that and I thought, fuck, that's actually really good, because if you actually spend time avoiding unpleasantness, it leads to some wonderful things, and you kind of filter out a lot of dickheads from your life if you think about things that way, and you surround yourself with people who enjoy fun and pleasantness and good times and love and bits and pieces like that. And I think a lot about that.
Such as just 2 words.
Yeah.
But sometimes the most profound things are literally just, avoid unpleasantness. So your daughters, is it Lara?
Lara works here. She's my second daughter. Neva's my eldest. She works for EY. And then we've got Esme, who works for Sky. She's incredibly talented. And Elia, my youngest, is trained to be a teacher, but she does a few shifts here as well on the reservations desk. She's brilliant.
What have they taught you about running?
They've taught me that women are really strong. yeah, and the bonds between them are really, really great. They're fabulous young women, all 4 of them. I'm terribly proud of them.
A few more things, Osh, and then we'll wrap this up. I'm absolutely loving this. But I want to go back to the James Joyce quote, which is, "A man of genius makes no mistakes. I don't know if I can say this word. His errors are volitional." I don't even know what that means. But basically saying mistakes are portals of discovery. And if I think back to every time I've made really big mistakes, they've retrospectively, albeit painful at the time, have led to kind of moments of portals of discovery.
Yeah. On that, I probably purposely try to forget about the mistakes that I've made, because to go back on what Paddy Rogers said, it's unpleasant, and I try to avoid unpleasantness. But I think the one thing I will say is that I really felt that the Guinny, when I was there, was the place that I would stay and retire, and I loved it there, and got on brilliant with Patrick Dardis at Young's and the guys there, and I always felt that was probably good enough for me to finish my career. And I sort of changed my mind about that. And then, especially talking to Charlie, I thought, fuck it, I'll take this really huge, massive risk, and I'll finish my job at the Guinea and leave. And I really felt that I might be making a big mistake there, because it was so successful and so great, and it really defined me at the time, and I had to really chop that off and forget it and redefine myself as the guy from Soho who's doing this other thing, and forget entirely about that, which I now look back on as a kind of an apprenticeship for this, because this is so much bigger and so much more successful and so much more crazy. And I felt at the time I really was vacillating about whether I was making the right decision. In hindsight, it was, but I really didn't know that until that photograph where I sat and had that pint in the corner, and that's when I knew it was all right.
Is that photo in the press? I think is that...
You have seen it in the press, yeah. It's one of Mike Taylor's photos.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous picture, that.
Yeah.
So would you say your almost identity had become slightly synonymous with the Guinea Grill?
I've said this before, and I think it's really, really true. A pub landlord becomes synonymous with the pub, and the pub becomes synonymous with the landlord. You've almost got to take on the character of the place as yourself, and that, for me, is one of the most important things you need to do if you're really, really good. And you look at really great pub landlords, whether it's Leslie at the French House, or Sandra at the Golden Heart, or Ali at the Coach and Horses, or Kevin Moran down at Kinnerton Street, the Nag's Head. And you think of the pub and you immediately think of the person, and you look at the person and you think of the pub. And I think that's
get that,
really,
Bliss,
really,
yeah.
really important. And for me, having put same thing happened at the ship. To be fair, you become part of that, and leaving it is always incredibly emotional because this becomes so much part of you, and it feels a bit. I've never been divorced, but if I would imagine it's similar emotions, and sometimes you really have to cut it off.
And how do you how do you reinvent yourself? Because I think life can be quite episodic in that you can put everything into one thing and then do another thing. And I think you can.
Well, I've definitely done that, and you can see it. The biggest compliment I got recently was on the internet, because the Times did that thing about my restaurant list, and they put it out as an ad, which annoyed people, and so people put kind of rude comments underneath some of it. And my favourite one was somebody just went, cord jacket wanker.
Oh, I saw that.
And I'm like, mate, you fucking nailed me. I'm so pleased about it, because I have slightly needed to invent myself to fit alongside what I think the pub should be, and that's part of the process of having moved to Soho and having got under the skin of the place and changed how it looks slightly, and all those things are very, very, very much part of what this pub is.
But I think it's good you can do that. Final couple of things, and then we'll wrap this up, Osh.
I was going to say that one of the best things I had, I mean, it's been incredibly emotional, as you can probably tell from me, about what this has done and what's happened, and the number of people's lives it's touched. But on St. Patrick's Day, on the 17th of March, was a Sunday. The Ireland-England match had been there was been a big rugby match at Twickenham. Actually, let me start again.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
I wanted to tell you about an incident, a thing that happened was that Ireland played England at Twickenham this year. So a few things happened that weekend. It was incredibly busy. A lot of people came over from Dublin, and obviously because we had some press in Ireland, lots of people came over, but having the owners of the Palace Bar, Donnyhan Nesbitt's, and a number of the other publicans in Dublin all coming in at the same time to ask for me and have a beer, that was pretty amazing. But on the Sunday after the game, just around lunchtime, pub was incredibly busy, and there was definitely an Irish accent in the pub because everybody was down after having lost at Twickenham, and fair play to England for winning. But I had this moment where Ross, who worked at Kyo's, obviously wonderful guy, said, "There's a guy over there who wants to speak to you." So I went over, and I recognised him, and it was Francie McGann.
No way.
Yeah. So he retired in 2005. Came over from County Cavan and said, I read about you in the paper. Fair play to you. And that was it.
That's a beautiful moment. What? So so where was he sat over?
He was sat over by the host desk with his wife and his daughter. And his daughter's in London. And we ended up having a really good chat.
What did you say to him? What was the first thing he said to you? And what did you say to him?
He said, "Fair play to you." And I said, "Geez, I haven't seen you in years." To be honest with you, I because I knew he'd retired in 2005 because the pub was sold, and that was it. So
this is the Stag's Head?
Yeah, the Stag's Head in Dublin, yeah. It was really an incredible moment to meet him.
Mm.
And to be honest with you, I think I'll have to meet him again because I wasn't really able to speak.
I didn't realise when we started this conversation how much of an impact he'd had on your life.
Oh, neither did I.
Yeah. So we kind of skimmed across the surface of what he'd done, but it seems like there's more than just teaching you the numbers of pulling a pint. It seems like there's something maybe slightly deeper with what he's...
Well, I think if you look at it and you at the time I went in for a part-time job, and then I learned how to do the feckin' job, and he was the boss. But when I go back to Ireland in the 90s and early 2000s, he'd still be there, And it was weird that I saw him as an old man, but like he would have been younger then, much younger then than I am now. You know. But I think it was a vignette for me for here because, you know, it just showed the start to the finish of the whole thing. And it was really nice to see him.
Beautiful, beautiful. You talked about the Irish publications coming over. Is it publications? If I said that?
Publicans. Yeah.
So
I wasn't expecting them either. Do you know what I mean? I recognize Willie Ahern, who's the owner of Palace Bar, absolute legend of a publican in Ireland. And I'm going, what the fuck are you doing in here? And he's going, oh, sure, I saw you in the paper. I thought I'd come for a pint, you know.
That's so amazing.
Sort of thing. So, yeah.
But but it seems like, again, that's a beautiful story of like, it is just a beautiful story. Osh starts in the stag's heads. You know, the hero's journey. You know, you go over to London. You come here. You have that identity with the Guinea grill.
Yeah.
You have the shit, which I want to talk about because I fucking had amazing booze up in that booze mate.
Didn't everybody?
Oh, mate, I'm not sure what's happened to it now, but but it feels like a beautiful, full circle moment when you're over there. What's the difference between, again, we kind of touched on this at the beginning about the publicans in Ireland, like the way they see a pub versus here, not this pub, but just in general, because
to be honest with you, I can't really say because I don't spend enough time in Dublin at all now, but I look back at having worked in the Stags and drank in McDade's and Hartigans and O'Donoghue's and Donaghy and Nesbitt's, and always thought about, you know, I think if you don't know those pubs, you think they're all quite similar, and they do look similar, but they always had that character, that sort of owner, landlord, barman, the guy. You know, it's always about the people. It's always about the people that you meet, and you know, when I think about, you know, particular pubs in those times, you think about Hartigans, I'll always think about the Mulligan family and how they were always there, how they always owned it with absolute cold heart and were completely and absolutely besotted with what they did. And I think that's something that you can feel even if you don't know who they are.
Talk to me about the ship, because what years was that? You left in 2015,
I took the ship in 2005 and I think I left in 2015, 2005-6. So it would have been a tenancy before. So Charles Gotto, another legend, by the way, of the industry, who may he rest in peace, ran that pub for 25 or 30 years, since the 80s. And for me, that was the epitome of what a gastropub was, because he had his own farm, he brought all the brilliant produce in there, he had a little restaurant in the back with the open kitchen, and that was in the 80s, like 1980. So everybody told me at the time that I was mad to take that pub, because you couldn't possibly do any better than how Charles had done, because it was iconic and had been for 25 years. And met Charles, he gave me a great welcome. He was leaving, I took it on, and I thought, how the hell am I going to do this? Because I didn't know much about restaurants then, to be honest with you. Not many publicans did, because it was just around the time the smoking ban had finished.
Right. Yeah, so that was, 2005.
Yeah.
When was the eve of this gastropub influx? Was the smoking ban?
No, there were gastropubs long before the smoking ban came in. So the Eagle in Farringdon, for example, that will go back to early 80s. Same as the Ship in Wandsworth, early 80s. But then pubs out in the country would always have had to do good food. So I think I banned that G word, because it's kind of been hijacked, I think, by the big companies who say they've got gastropubs. But you look at the top 50 gastropubs list, they're the real gastropubs. Yeah. You'll find on those lists there won't be any more than one or two that's run by big companies. They're all individually operated, and that's another example of what I was talking about earlier.
What I don't understand is you work for a big corporate, but then you're employed by a big corporate who, and I'm not going to say they're, I think Young's pubs are brilliant. Like I really do, but I think there are across, needs to be delicate. I say this, but there is, just by the size of the fucking thing, there's going to be some IKEA flat packness or homogeneity to it. How I don't understand is you obviously got this big character, big raconteur that's in this kind of on the the corporate kind of not machine, but like how are you putting your mark down? Do you see what I'm trying to say?
To be honest with you, I was very, very fortunate because my previous pub, the St. Margaret's, was incredibly successful.
Where's that?
In Twickenham, just between Twickenham and Richmond. Beautiful railway pub on the corner. We did it in 2002, I think. And it just went from zero to absolutely bananas, and it was an incredible success. And I came on Young's radar at that stage because that was Spirit Scottish Newcastle development. And John Young, the chairman of Young's, came to see me at the pub, and he said, "This is a really, really great pub, and there's only one thing wrong with your career at the moment." And I said, "What's that?" And he said, "You're working for the wrong company." And
this wasn't, sorry, St. Margaret's wasn't at Young's pub?
No, it wasn't Young's.
Okay,
that was before I joined Young's. So the chairman actually came down to St. Margaret's to persuade me to move over. And part of me moving over was having a long conversation with Patrick Dardis, who was the chief exec at the time and still was up until recently. And I said to him, I'm not moving over unless I've got a huge level of autonomy in how things will be run. And he agreed to that, and all the way through the Ship, the Cannonbury, the Thatched House, the Duke's Head, and the Guinny, I had pretty much landlord autonomy. You know, obviously there's lots of structures in terms of how you purchase things and how you deal with things, but in terms of the running of the business, the menus, the drinks we sold, how it was presented, how we managed the staff, how the place looked and felt. So it was completely down to me when I was working at Young's, and I was very, very pleased to have done that.
And is Young's, because what I'm trying to say is, say there's other does Young's almost have like a kind of, not a wild card, that's the worst way of saying it, but like a selection of pubs like the Guinny, like the Ship, where they can kind of do their own thing?
Certainly,
how does it work?
It certainly used to have, and you know, we used to certainly, you know, I used to justify it, but on the basis that the turnover was higher and the profit was higher, so just leave us alone. And that lasted for a very, very long time, but I'm not sure it's the same now.
We'll leave that. And then the final thing, mate, just to understand, is that pub. I wanted to get onto the Ship, but the prelude to that is this St. Margaret's pub. Yeah. What did you railway station, pub, boozer in Twickenham? How did you get that rocking? Do you know what I mean?
Another long story, but to make it short, it was a pub which had been in decline for a very long time. Is right on an apex, a similar shape to this, like a flatiron shape. And to give context, it would have had a lot of ne'er-do-wells and randoms in and out with poor service, poor quality. Wasn't very well run, not very big, and Scottish Newcastle at the time had a project to increase the size of it by using the garden and increase the footprint by more than double, probably 3 times the size, and the huge investment at the time. And they asked me to run it, and we completely gutted it, rebuilt it, and all of the ne'er-do-wells and the unemployed people around there and people, we still welcomed them with open arms and let them have a wonderful time there, but then layered on a really good food business, a lot of entertainment, music at night, very accessible pricing, really good staff, big bar, and a lot of fun. And it exceeded its expectation by 3 times when we opened it. And we won Pub of the Year at the Publican Awards in 2003, I think, and that sort of really kick-started that business into 3 years of massive growth before Young's pounced on me then.
And that was just almost focusing on the things other people aren't necessarily focusing on.
Well, I think I kind of did it by accident, but I did learn what works there.
And then with the Ship, just in terms of, because I went there on New Year's Eve, like, must have been 2 years ago.
Goodness.
And I was thinking, fuck me, what's this place become? Because my sort of boozing career, I'm not boozing career, but
you have a career?
Yeah, professional boozer. But,
that's actually my job.
But Is it turned into this night? I think it's through social media. It's basically like a fucking nightclub now with the outside bit. It's absolutely crazy.
We saw the genesis of that. I remember taking it over and thinking that we'd have an opportunity to maybe do a bit of music on Sunday night, because Sunday, we always had a good Sunday lunch business, but when I took it over, Sunday night would be a couple of old locals, a couple of dogs, and maybe a couple of couples having a couple of drinks, and it. I thought, I'll get some of the musicians that I knew from Twickenham to come and do a Sunday night, and within months, Sunday night really started to become a thing.
So that was your. So the Ship Sundays was your.
I'll take complete responsibility for that,
so
and I'm
banging.
so sorry about it. But I over a period of about 2-3 years, it went from no turnover to one of the busiest nights in any pub that I've ever seen. Is it
again? This is just probably like again stories. That's the
yeah.
stories thing. Some of my mates say this is when I'm kind of half cut or on my way to full cut at the Ship. They say that's the most profitable Young's pub. Is that?
It certainly was.
Interesting.
Yeah, it certainly was. We had a really good run there, and it grew every year from 2005 to 2015 between 14 and 25% every year. So we really had a good time.
That's wild.
Mm-hmm.
Osh, I've loved that, mate. It's
a pleasure.
It's just so good. I think what you've said right at the beginning, the publican is synonymous with the pub is synonymous with the publican. It's so nice after seeing this, hearing about it through George and Dom, and now coming here on Friday. I really feel like I have understood that, and it's just. Yeah, it's been a perfect start to the week, so thank you so much.
Thanks, Dan, for coming down. It's good to unload it from my point of view as well, because while I know all of these things, I don't often get the chance to elucidate it and get it out there. But yeah, I'm pretty confident I'm right about that, and that if you want to do this really well, you've got to almost take the pub on as part of your personality, and in fact, perhaps. The personality of the pub is more important than the personality of the person running it.
Perfect place to end. Thank you, mate.
Cheers. Pleasure. Great.